What if the greatest victory isn't about proving others wrong, but about discovering the power within yourself to be seen? Subscribe and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? Layla Thompson had only been teaching for 2 years, but she had already earned a reputation for being strict and unyielding. Her students feared her sharp gaze and unwavering standards. She pushed them hard, not to be cruel, but because she believed in the potential of every student, even if they didn't yet see it in themselves. But today, as she scanned the classroom, there was one student who caught her attention more than the rest: Jamal Walker. He was quiet, always seated at the back, with his head down and eyes fixed on his desk. His homework was often incomplete, and he rarely participated in class discussions. He was the kind of student who blended into the background, unseen, unnoticed. Layla had been waiting for an opportunity to bring Jamal out of his shell. Today, she would get it. She stood in front of the class, her voice calm yet commanding, as she wrote a complicated equation on the board. "All right, class," she began, her eyes sweeping the room. "Let's see who can solve this one." She glanced at Jamal, her gaze lingering for a moment longer than usual. "Jamal," she called, her voice cutting through the silence. "How about you come up and give this a try?" The classroom fell silent. Jamal looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. A nervous chuckle echoed from a few of the students, but Jamal didn't move. He stared at the board, his stomach churning with anxiety. He had never been the one to raise his hand in class, never been the one to stand out. And now, with all eyes on him, he didn't know what to do. Layla didn't wait for an answer. "Come on, Jamal," she urged, her voice softer this time. "You're the only one who can solve it." Jamal's hands clenched at his sides. He hated being the center of attention. He hated the spotlight. But there was no escape now. Slowly he stood up, feeling his knees shake beneath him. Every step towards the board felt like a mile, but he didn't have a choice. As he reached the front of the room, he tried to ignore the whispers and the giggles from his classmates. He picked up the chalk, his fingers trembling as he stared at the equation. He had never been the smartest in the class, and math had always been his weakest subject. But he knew he had to try. He couldn't back down now. The first few seconds felt like an eternity as he worked through the problem in his mind. The pressure was unbearable. But then something shifted inside him. He focused, blocked out everything around him, and let his instincts take over. The chalk moved swiftly across the board, his hands steady and deliberate. Within moments, Jamal had solved the equation, the answer clear and precise. The room was dead silent. He stepped back, unsure of what would come next. Layla, standing to the side, watched in stunned silence. The students were equally stunned. A few gasped, while others exchanged looks of disbelief. No one expected Jamal, the quiet kid at the back of the room, to solve the problem with such ease. Even Layla was taken aback. She had expected him to struggle, maybe even fail, but instead he had done what no one thought he could. Layla couldn't help but smile, though she quickly masked it with her usual stern expression. "Well done, Jamal," she said, her voice low but filled with a trace of pride. "You're smarter than you think." Jamal turned to face the class, his heart pounding in his chest. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He didn't feel invisible. The other students were looking at him, not with mockery, but with respect. Some even clapped, a few giving him nods of acknowledgement. As he returned to his seat, his hands still trembling, Layla's eyes followed him. She had always believed in his potential, even if he couldn't see it himself. Today, Jamal had taken a step toward realizing that potential, and in doing so, he had changed the way everyone saw him. The rest of the class went on as usual, but Jamal's mind was elsewhere. He could still feel the weight of the chalk in his hand, the satisfaction of having solved the equation. But more than that, he felt something deeper. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the failure he had always believed himself to be. The next day, something unexpected happened. Jamal walked into class with a little more confidence, his posture a little straighter. He didn't sit at the back this time. He took a seat in the middle of the room, where he could be seen. And when Layla called on him again, he raised his hand without hesitation. "Jamal?" Layla said, surprised but impressed. "Are you ready to try again?" Jamal smiled just a little, his eyes brightening. "Yes, I think I am." As the lesson continued, Layla couldn't help but watch him closely. The transformation in Jamal was subtle, but unmistakable. He was no longer the quiet, invisible boy in the back of the class. He was starting to believe in himself, and that was all she had hoped for. By the end of the week, Jamal had answered more questions, contributed to class discussions, and even helped a few classmates with their homework. His quiet, disheveled demeanor was still there, but now it was paired with a newfound sense of purpose. And though Layla knew the journey was far from over, she felt a deep sense of pride. It wasn't about making Jamal the smartest student in the room. It was about helping him find his voice and realize that he had something valuable to offer. For Jamal, the lesson wasn't just about math. It was about the realization that he had the power to change the narrative of his life, the power to be seen, and the power to prove, not to anyone else, but to himself, that he was more than what the world had made him believe. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next video. Feel free to share this video with others and check out more stories on our channel.